Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now. Let me tell you something. The Los Angeles Dodgers front office never sleeps, not even for a second. While most of us were going about our regular Tuesday, the Dodgers were quietly, almost invisibly, making a move that flew completely under the radar of the mainstream baseball media. And the reason they made that move? Well, that's where things get a little uncomfortable for Dodger Nation, because it all starts with some genuinely concerning news surrounding one of the team's most quietly important players, Tommy Edman. That's right. Before we get into the sneaky signing, before we unpack all the chess pieces the Dodgers are moving around on this board, we need to talk about Tommy Edman, what's going on with his ankle, and why the front office felt the urgency to go out and add another body to their infield depth chart. Because this isn't just a transaction you scroll past. This is a story about a defending World Series champion proactively protecting itself, about a player whose value is massively underrated by casual fans, and about a new addition who, if things break right, might just remind everyone why he was once considered one of the more exciting middle infielders in all of baseball. So buckle up, grab whatever you're drinking, and let's get into all of it, because Dodgers Digest has the full breakdown right here. Let's start where we have to start, with Tommy Edman and the news that sent a quiet ripple of anxiety through Dodger Nation. According to a report from Katie Wu, Tommy Edman is going to begin the 2026 season on the injured list. And here's the part that makes it even more unsettling. The Dodgers don't have a timetable for when he's going to be cleared to play. The official word from the organization was deliberately vague, almost frustratingly so. They said they're just looking at where his ankle is at, trying to play the long view. That's front office speak for, we genuinely don't know yet, and we're not going to promise something we can't deliver. Now, to be fair, Tommy has reportedly been taking swings, so it's not like he's completely sidelined in the most dramatic sense of the word. He's working, he's trying to get himself ready, but the fact that the Dodgers won't put a date on his return, the fact that they're being deliberately cautious and non-committal about when he'll be available, that tells you everything you need to know about the seriousness with which they're treating this situation. And you know what? They should be treating it seriously, because Tommy Edman is not just a roster filler. Tommy Edman is not just a name on a depth chart that you can casually replace with a phone call and a minor league contract. Tommy Edman is a Gold Glove caliber defender at second base, and he was absolutely critical to what the Dodgers were doing last season during the time he spent on the field. His WR landed at a solid 1.10. His average and on-base percentage were both in a respectable range. And most importantly, and this is the thing that doesn't show up in the box score, but every manager and front office understands, he gave the Dodgers a guy they could write in the lineup at second base every single day without thinking twice about it. That kind of reliability and consistency is worth more than people realize, especially on a roster as star-studded and complicated to manage as the Los Angeles Dodgers. When you've got Shohei Ohtani, when you've got Freddie Freeman, when you've got all these enormous personalities and enormous contracts demanding your attention and your planning, it's actually the steady, dependable, everyday players in the middle of the field who become the backbone of your defense. Edman was that backbone at second base, and right now that backbone is sitting on the injured list with no timetable for return. So what do you do when Tommy Edman goes down? Well, if you're the Los Angeles Dodgers, you don't panic. You don't make a desperate splash. You do what you've done better than almost any organization in baseball for the better part of the last decade. You think it through, you look at your options, and you make a calm, calculated, quietly clever move, and that's exactly what happened. Fabian Ardaya had the report over at The Athletic, and it dropped with very little fanfare, which is honestly kind of wild, given the context. The Dodgers have signed Santiago Espinal. He's being brought in as an infield depth option, and when you read that phrase, infield depth option, it's easy to let your eyes glaze over and move on to the next story. Don't do that, because there's a lot more going on here than 3 words and a transaction wire notation. Santiago Espinal most recently spent time with the Cincinnati Reds, and before that, he was a meaningful piece of the Toronto Blue Jays organization, a team that, for a stretch of a couple of years, looked like a genuine American League powerhouse. And here's the thing about Espinal that you need to understand before you judge this signing on surface-level numbers. His 2024 season was rough, like genuinely rough. He appeared in 114 games, didn't hit a single home run, posted a batting average of .243, an on-base percentage of .292, with slugging and OPS numbers sitting deep in the lower percentiles of the league. His WAR came in at negative 1.040. That's not great. Part of that was driven by his defensive WAR dipping into negative territory, which is particularly alarming when you consider that defense was supposed to be a core part of his game. So, on paper, if you're skimming, you see a 31-year-old infielder coming off a rough year with the Reds, posting negative WAR, and signing with the Dodgers as a depth option. Easy to dismiss, right? Easy to read the headline, shake your head, and wonder why the Dodgers couldn't do better. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's where the story actually begins, because if you stop at the 2024 numbers with Santiago Espinal, you're missing the entire picture. Go back to 2021 and 2022, and you find a completely different player. Not a slightly better version of the guy who struggled in Cincinnati. A genuinely elite version of a player who looked like he was going to be a fixture in the American League for years to come. In 2021, Espinal posted a batting average of 311. 311. That's not a fluke. That's a guy who put consistent quality at-bats together over the course of a full season. His OBP was above 320, his slugging was hovering around the 400 mark, and his OPS was a very impressive 781. Then in 2022, he came back with another strong campaign, average at 267, OBP above 320 again, slugging in that same respectable range, OPS right around 700. His combined WAR for those two seasons, 4.8. Combined. That's a legitimately good player. That's a guy who was producing at a meaningful level and doing it consistently over back-to-back seasons. And the defense, let's talk about the defense, because this is where it gets really fascinating. In that 2022 season, Espinal's range factor as a defender was sitting in the 95th percentile league-wide. His run value as a defender went from 2 in 2020 to 5 in 2021 to 6 in 2022. That's a trajectory going in the exact right direction. That's a player who was not only developing offensively, but becoming a more impactful defensive presence at the same time. His spray charts from that era show a guy hitting the ball to all parts of the field, pulling for power when he needed to, going the other way when the situation called for it, doing all the little things right that add up to a winning baseball player. Then 2023 arrived and things started to go sideways. Injuries, positional battles, reduced innings, it all started to chip away at what he'd built. His run value defensively dropped to -4 in 2023 and stayed at -4 in 2024 before nudging back towards 0 most recently, which is technically an improvement, but not the kind of thing you'd put on a poster. His range, which had been one of his calling cards, has declined consistently since 2022. The innings have decreased. The confidence, at least from a statistical standpoint, appears to have taken a significant hit. So the question becomes, what is the Dodgers' actual plan here? What are they seeing in Santiago Espinal that justifies this signing? And the answer, if you're thinking about it the way the Dodgers front office thinks about it, is actually pretty logical when you break it down. The Dodgers aren't signing Espinal because they think he's going to be a star. They're not signing him because they expect him to replace Tommy Edman's production on a one-for-one basis. They're signing him because they believe, or at least they hope, that a change of scenery, a chance to compete for a role on a championship-caliber organization, and the structure and resources that the Dodgers provide might be the thing that unlocks the version of Espinal that we saw in 2021 and 2022. Think about it. He put those numbers up with the Blue Jays, a solid team, a supportive organization, a good environment. Then things deteriorated through the roster battles, the injuries, and eventually a stint with the Reds where things just never clicked. Maybe he just needs to be around winners again. Maybe he just needs to be in a place where expectations are high, where the culture demands accountability, and where showing up and doing your job at a high level is non-negotiable. That's the Dodger way, and there's a real argument to be made that the Dodger way is exactly what Santiago Espinal needs right now. But here's the important thing, and this is something that needs to be said clearly and honestly. Even if everything breaks right for Espinal, even if he shows up to spring training and looks like the 2022 version of himself, he's still probably going to be the break glass in case of emergency option. He's still probably going to be the safety net, because the Dodgers actually have some legitimate infield options beyond just Espinal, and if you're not paying attention to those options, you're missing a big part of the story. Let's talk about Miggy Rojas for a moment. Miguel Rojas is somebody the Dodgers have real confidence in, and for good reason. He showed up in enormous moments during the World Series run and reminded everyone that he's a professional baseball player in the truest sense of the word. His natural home is at third base, but he's got the flexibility and the veteran savvy to handle multiple positions across the infield, and the Dodgers know exactly what they're getting with him. Steady, reliable, smart baseball from a guy who's been in big spots before and doesn't wilt. And then there's Kike Hernandez, good old Kike, who came back to the Dodgers and who honestly might be the most underappreciated player in this entire conversation. Kike is a known quantity in Los Angeles. The fans love him, the coaching staff trusts him, and he's proven over his career that he can be productive in a utility role while also stepping up and handling bigger responsibilities when the situation demands it. The fact that he's back in a Dodgers uniform feels comfortable, feels right, and he absolutely should be part of the second base conversation while Edman is unavailable. But here's the player who might actually be the most interesting piece of this whole puzzle. And it's somebody who, in the honest assessment of most analysts, isn't getting nearly enough attention right now. That player is Hye-Sung Kim. And if Tommy Edman is going to be out for any significant stretch of time, Hye-Sung Kim might just be the guy who steps into that void more meaningfully than anyone else. Think about what Kim did in his first major league season. Appeared in 71 games, posted a batting average of .280, had an OPS just shy of 700, contributed 3 home runs and 17 RBIs, and put together an on-base percentage that showed real quality and discipline at the plate. Those aren't the numbers of a player you bury in the lineup and hope for the best. Those are the numbers of a player who belongs in the conversation, who earned his spot, and who is going to be better for the experience of having gone through that first full season in the big leagues. But it's the defensive numbers that really make the case for Kim. His defensive WAR last year was in the 94th percentile league-wide. 94th percentile. His fielding percentage was .962. Yes, he had 3 errors, so let's not pretend he's flawless. But the overall defensive profile he brings to the table looks remarkably similar to what Edman was providing for this team. The range is there. The athleticism is there. The ability to read the ball off the bat and get to spots that other players can't reach, that's there too. So if you ask who the Dodgers are going to lean on most heavily in Edman's absence, and you're being completely honest about it based on everything we know, the answer is probably Hye-Sung Kim. It might be a combination of Kim and Rojas, with Kike Hernandez sprinkled in for the matchup-based flexibility he provides, and then Espinal waiting in the wings, working on his game during spring training, either proving he belongs on the major league roster or accepting a role where he's one injury or one hot streak away from getting his opportunity. Here's another layer to this that makes the Espinal signing particularly interesting from a strategic standpoint. He's not a second baseman exclusively, not even close. In 2024 and 2025, he appeared at first base, spent significant time at both second and third base, logged innings at shortstop, and even got time in both left and right field. That's an extraordinarily versatile player. That's a guy who can cover gaps across the roster in ways that you can't always anticipate or plan for in November and December when you're building your opening day squad. The Dodgers have always placed a premium on roster flexibility, on having players who can slide into multiple spots without dropping the quality of play significantly. Santiago Espinal, whatever his statistical warts might look like over the past 2 seasons, fits that profile perfectly. And let's put this in the larger context of how the Dodgers operate, because that context matters enormously. This is an organization that doesn't make transactions out of desperation. This is an organization that runs the numbers, evaluates the risk, identifies the potential upside, and makes moves with clear-eyed, calculated confidence. When they sign a player like Santiago Espinal, they're not throwing a dart at a board. They're making a deliberate bet that they can provide an environment where that player rediscovers his best self, contributes meaningfully to winning baseball games, and adds depth to a roster that's still, let's be real about this, one of the most talented collections of players in Major League Baseball. They signed Freddie Freeman, and he became one of the greatest comeback stories in World Series history. They brought back Kike Hernandez when others might have moved on. They developed Hye-Sung Kim into a legitimate big league contributor. The Dodgers have a track record of taking players in situations that look complicated on the surface and turning them into something that works. Santiago Espinal is just the latest chapter in that ongoing story. Now, there's a significant dose of optimism required to believe in the rosiest version of this scenario. Espinal is 31 years old. He's coming off 2 consecutive difficult seasons. His defensive decline since 2022 has been real and measurable. His defensive production has cratered compared to the peak years with Toronto. These aren't invented concerns, and they're legitimate questions that any honest analyst has to acknowledge when evaluating this signing. The version of Espinal that the Dodgers need him to be, the 2022 version, the guy in the 95th percentile defensively, the guy spraying line drives to all fields, that guy hasn't shown up consistently in nearly 3 years. Whether a change of organization can unlock that version of him again is genuinely uncertain.